Yo, what is going on, everybody? So today I've got a very interesting video for you, and I've been sitting on this one for a while. I was actually going to do a video today talking about something completely different. I was going to talk about how we should essentially screen the social media of women and the ones that are showing their nipples everywhere and showing their swimwear and all their assets everywhere for everyone to see. Just like in the song written by Nick Jonas called Jealous. And it says, I wish you didn't have to post it all. I wish you'd save just a little bit for me. I think any of you guys who have ever had an attention-seeking girlfriend who posts everything online and you see it on her story or on her post or on her Instagram, and then you're like, hey, how about you send me a little something? And then she'll send you the pic that she posted like a day earlier on Instagram. I'm like, this ain't new. I've seen this. You know what I mean? Like, what is there for me? Like, I'm the dude taking you out on dates. I'm doing all this stuff. So I've learned to get very savvy to these behaviors very, very early. I just don't spend money or time on anyone like that anymore. And, you know, lo and behold, I've attracted better quality women into my life. But I'm going to get onto this story because today's story was written by an author called Freya India. And she writes for Evie magazine. And Joker, the Better Bachelor, shout out to Joker. He has written he's done a number of different takes from Evie magazine. It appears to be sort of fairly female focused. However, they seem to be pretty balanced. I mean, this particular woman, Freya, she appears to be a conservative from what I can tell. I'm not going to look. I'm not saying no. Well, please. I don't want to get into the shit show that ensued in the comments of my video the other day. All I'm saying is the kind of. Let me just read you a couple of the titles that she's been writing about, and you can get a bit of a picture about the kind of writing that she does. And guys, I know I read a lot of articles from women, but part of the reason for that is if I read articles by women exposing the hypocrisy of the worst of them, then I can't be accused of being a misogynist because I'm simply just reading the words of a woman, and we have to believe women, right? So this is kind of like a strategic catch-22 that I get YouTube in, where they can't really do anything because what I'm saying was actually said by someone that they wouldn't deplatform, so therefore they can't really deplatform me for the same thing, and it gives me very strong grounds for a dispute. And Douglas Mark says 33.3 subs, Illuminati confirmed. I used to have 33.6k subs, but YouTube keeps deleting my subscribers on a daily basis, so there's that. But anyway, I'm going to read you the titles of some of these articles that Freya has written. There's Why the Silence Over British Grooming Gangs and the Child Physical Abuse Crisis. I can't say the S word that ends in you all because then I will get flagged. It says she's written, Our kids aren't being educated, they're being indoctrinated. She's written, History says that female leaders are more likely to wage war than men. Also, if we want to fight quote unquote toxic masculinity, we need to teach real masculinity again. And she's not trying to tell people how to be a man. I've read the article because I was a bit sus on the title. And basically it's saying, look, you know, I'm using this. It's basically saying, look, I'm using this term because that's what people understand. But we actually need to bring traditional masculinity back. And that needs to be done by having fathers involved, all this sort of stuff. We need to cultivate the lost art of anti-fragility. So basically saying we need to stop being little snowflakes. She's also written this article that I'm going to be reading to you today. She says privileged, quote unquote privileged, because she's satirizing that term. Men can suffer body image issues too. 5 narcissistic symptoms of social justice warriors. Divorce doesn't just destroy marriages, it destroys children too. Can we talk about toxic femininity yet? So these are some of the titles that she's got, just to give you a bit of a feel for the intent of this author. So let's get into this because this is actually a really, really interesting read. I'm just going to bring it up on the screen here. It says, in today's society, men are constantly being told to change their ways in order to be better for women. And that is true. That is what's happening. The phrase toxic masculinity has become increasingly popular, a concept which suggests that men suffer from a kind of sickness. Western men, particularly those who are straight, white, and cisgender, like your boy here, are now demonized as harassers, abusers, adulterers, and the architects of an oppressive patriarchy. Where? They're told endlessly by companies, celebrities, academics, and even their own families to cure their inherently toxic attitudes. We all remember that Gillette advertisement in 2019, which depicted men as patronizing and sexually inappropriate towards women, before concluding that men need to hold other men accountable, to say the right thing, to act the right way. But is it only men that need to reflect on their behavior, she says. Nobody can deny that masculinity can be taken to the extreme, whether this manifests as bullying, domestic violence, or sexual assault. And nobody denies that aggressive behavior can be taken to the extreme, right? So I'm going to challenge her on that. I don't think that that's a masculine trait to be a bully or to be, a domestic abuser or any of these things. So now that I've cleared that up, but it's too simplistic to say that men are the ones who need to change. I agree with that. If we want real progress, she says, we need to look deeper. What creates these dangerous men? What's feeding toxic behavior? What we don't often consider is the other side of the spectrum, that quote unquote toxic femininity could also be playing a role. I think it's time we took a look at the main influence in most young boys' lives, their mothers. The negative feminine, it says. The simplest way to understand toxic femininity is through archetypes, conceptualized by Swiss psychologist Carl Jung. I think I pronounced that correctly. Archetypes are universal symbols that show up in dreams, art, religion, and literature as part of humanity's collective unconscious. Jung outlines several female archetypes, one of which is the Great Mother, the protective and nurturing feminine, the symbol of birth, fertility, and creativity. Think of the Virgin Mary in Christianity or the fairy godmother in Cinderella. But in Jung's world, every archetype carries a shadow, a darker side. If a mother becomes overprotective, shielding her children entirely from the world, she turns toxically feminine and it morphs into what Jung calls a devouring mother. According to Dr. Jordan Peterson, the devouring mother is a pathological manifestation of motherhood. She devours her children's potential using emotional manipulation and even physical abuse to keep them close. The standard pathology of mum, Dr. Peterson claims, is that she did everything for you. Her fear of loneliness triggers controlling, obsessive, and even homicidal behavior. For example, the old woman who lures in Hansel and Gretel with candy and comfort, all the while planning to consume them. Or the mother in Rapunzel who locks her beautiful daughter away to preserve her own youth. So what kind of sons do devouring mothers raise? Well, Dr. Peterson argues that overly agreeable and overprotective people have a proclivity to divide the world into defenseless infants and predatory oppressors, and that's projected onto the political landscape. Give me a moment. No, I don't have the bug. He suggests that this type of parenting tends to go one of two ways. Either devouring mothers coddle their sons to the point of creating a man-child, or terrorize them into becoming a predator. Of course, there are many variations between these extremes, but I think we can clearly see predatory oppressors and defenseless infants in the forms of toxic masculinity most discussed today. Disgust is what I have for that term. And then you got the defenseless infants. Let's start. For fear of losing him, a devouring mother doesn't allow her son to become a man, and so he grows into an adult infant, overly reliant on her and incapable of living alone. These men are thought to have little masculine energy after being emasculated and feminized by overbearing mothers. And by the way, also after being rejected by the majority of the female population for being pussies. And this is what women do call men like that if they have no heart. Some of them are a little bit kinder to just give a straight and respectful rejection. But there's only so much rejection you can get before you get angry at women, right? So if mums really want to play a part, in reducing the amount of men that are frustrated at women and volatile. They need to raise men who are more aware of the ways of women. And I see all the time in my comments guys talking about what their mothers told them about women when they were younger, and this has actually set them up better. And look, sometimes there's no amount of warning, no amount of information that your mothers or your fathers can give you. There's always the bait and switch that can just, take you out and you don't even see it coming. So even if you're the most masculine man, sometimes you just stumble across a landmine. And those guys who have stumbled across landmines, like I'm not hating on you. I'm not attacking you. I'm not suggesting that you've done anything wrong. But this is red. There are reasons there are red flags you need to be aware of. And this is one of them, because quite often these people do have red flags very early on. Anyway, they struggle to look after themselves. And if they don't remain dependent on their mother, they desperately seek a female partner as a nurturing replacement, who of course is going to see him as weak. She's not going to respect him. And she's probably just going to use him for whatever it is that she can use him for in order to control things. Anyway, today terms like SIMP and beta male are used to describe this kind of man. SIMP is a word for a guy who will do anything to impress a woman, often letting her walk all over him. That's exactly what it is. Some even suggest that a boy with an overprotective mother is more likely to become the perfect, this is a quotation here, perfect and virtuous anti-patriarchal feminist white knight that the social justice crowd would like him to be. End quote. These men are thought to be toxic in their own way, defending whatever they think women support to win them over in the bedroom, or constantly harassing them for attention. Then there's the self-proclaimed incels who are involuntarily celibates, who, when unable to find a romantic partner, turn to misogyny or wage a violent vendetta against women. I actually think that's a really unfair and unreasonable and excessively harsh representation of guys who are actually involuntarily celibate. Guys who are involuntarily celibate, look, I'm not involuntarily celibate, contrary to a bunch of feminist comments that have been left in my YouTube section. I've got options. I'm not even, it's not even open for discussion, I mean, you can discuss it with me, but the answer is the same. But look, let's talk about incels, right? There are guys out there who are involuntarily celibate, who are frustrated with women, who cannot find a romantic partner, and who don't turn to misogyny, and who don't turn to violence or have any sort of vendetta against women. I'm sure for those people, if they still want to date, yes, there is frustration, and understandably so, because they've been sold a lie. They've been told a lie. They've had what they seek grossly misrepresented, and they haven't been told the truth. So now we've gone from what do they call it? The defenseless infants. Let's now talk about the predatory oppressors, right? The guys who do actually turn physical and aggressive. So on the other side of the spectrum, when infantilized men feel powerless and humiliated, they may become hypermasculine. Look, I think it's just unregulated aggression. I don't think it's so much hypermasculine. It really is unregulated aggression, because they haven't had anyone to show them how to have controlled aggression. Because quite often, if they've been raised by only the feminine, then they are being raised by a feminine archetype. And then archetype is quite likely to, particularly if they have a high estrogen, become extremely emotional when things get frustrating or upsetting, and can potentially lash out. And I see this time and time again. So that's likely the kind of behavior that is being emulated by men that have been infantilized, treated like children. It is very frustrating, and sometimes it's kind of like, just leave me alone. And you kind of just, like, I know I've seen it. I've seen it when guys finally snap, and I was hearing about it and I haven't seen much from Bettina Arndt for a while. I know some of you guys aren't a fan, but she did an interview with a guy who talks about family DV in Indigenous communities, and that's for the uninitiated Aboriginals in Australia, the remote communities. And White Ribbon went out to talk to them, and of course, what they were talking about was completely ridiculous. And so what you had was this guy saying, hey, this isn't what's going on in our communities. You're totally misrepresenting it. This is not the way that this family conflict works. And of course, White Ribbon didn't want to know about that because they're a feminist organization and they only have one way that you're allowed to think. But, you know, nonetheless, this was something that was being talked about. And there was a case of, I think it was like I can't remember the exact age, but let's say 14. It was early teens. And this guy had been abused and treated like dirt by his mother, who had no father in the picture. I don't know the circumstances, so I'm going to leave that to your own discretion. But basically, he finally fought back. And he was the one, after he lashed out, after 14 years of anger and frustration building up, he finally was like, I'm not going to be pushed around. And he got aggressive. And of course, you know, then the mum called up the police and says, oh, he was violent towards me. My son was violent. He had the book thrown at him. The caseworker came in and was like, hey, man, I see the facts here. This guy's had the book thrown at him for nothing. He was clearly in the right. She was clearly in the wrong. And like, what are you guys doing? Like, what's going on with the police? Anyway, so this is the kind of thing that pans out. Just look at Harvey Weinstein, who, after being identified as an offender of bedroom behaviors that maybe didn't happen in the bedroom, in 2017 announced, and he said, I have created a $5 million foundation to give scholarship to women directors. It will be named after my mum. I won't disappoint her. Now, it's interesting that you say that, right? Interesting. So even after all of this has happened, even after he probably got raised as exactly that type of guy who ended up being an incel, and he even said, like, one of his legal defenses was, you know, I was just the chubby Jewish kid at school, something to that effect. I think he mentioned Jewish. I'm not being anti-Semitic here. It was his words, but he basically to paraphrase, he was saying, I was just the unattractive chubby Jewish kid at school who couldn't get laid, and now that I'm rich and powerful, I decided, you know, I just was trading parts in movies for sex. He said that. It's like, and these women know what they were doing. They could go to any other director and they could get in line with all of the rest of the aspiring actors. But no, they wanted to queue jump. So how did they queue jump? By getting the two legs and doing this with them. And that's exactly what happened. So, right? And now he's basically kissing ass to women again. This is a perfect textbook example of how this kind of overbearing mother archetype can manifest in these sorts of outcomes and these sorts of behavioral tendencies. And by the way, look, I'm not suggesting anything about Weinstein. I'm staying out of that argument. I don't know the absolute facts, so I'm not going to get involved. The media has distorted things too much for me to put any credence on anything that's been said about it. So, and we've got and I don't know if you've been worked in the education system, or if you just had a kid in there, but we've got Marie saying a lot of young boys in the school. She saw a lot of young boys in the schools. They were byproducts of single mothers, and their inability to control their outbursts was saddening. 4th grade with fists in the wall. That's exactly what's happening. That is exactly what's happening as a result of fathers not being in homes. And the system is enabling it. The system is enabling it. The government policies are facilitating this trend. But then it's the boys' fault. Then it's the boys' fault, when it was actually the government and it was actually the mothers that wouldn't allow the father to be in the life. Now, sure, there's some fathers that disappear, and some of them disappear because they're dicks. A lot of them disappear because the mother's a dick. And then some just aren't allowed to be in the life because the mother doesn't want them to. There's numerous different situations. And Leonardo says, In my country, 90% of violent criminals grew up in single mothers' houses. I'm telling you guys, this is what's happening. You need to show anyone who thinks that men are just violent and aggressive and all of this nasty stuff, and it's nobody's fault. Like, the statistics bear this out. Statistics bear this out, period. Now, she says in this article, to clarify, I'm not saying that all toxicity can be explained by an overbearing mother or that all boys with overprotective mums become pathological. But when you look at statistics on male convicts, childhood experiences do seem very important. In one 2017 study of the offenders surveyed, all right, and this is talking about guys who are incarcerated, male convicts. 66.1% reported that in their childhood they were abused in a physical way relating to the bedroom. 72.6% of them reported childhood physical isuba. So what's isuba backwards? ESUBA. 66.1% reported childhood emotional isuba. And 54% of the men who were isubaed in the bedroom were victimized by a woman. Now, I'm no mathematician, right? But this is adding up to about 250%. And obviously, you can only account for 100% of the 100% of people. So what this is telling me is that most people had probably at least 3 of these things present in their childhood, and now they're convicts. And you wonder why. And the government keeps forcing fathers out of home with feminist policies. Now, let's got a little poll here and says, do you think toxic femininity is a problem? So 633 people have answered. I'm also going to answer. I think it's a problem. Let's see what the polls are so far. Wow, we were 95%. That's what I thought. That's what I expected. Anyway, the closing thoughts. Looking forward, it's important to remember that how men act with women is often a reflection of how they bonded with their mothers. Exactly. But hey, we're not allowed to talk about that because that's shaming mothers, right? That's putting the blame for bad behavior back onto women. Where? And look, I know that there are some good mums where the boys have just gotten in with the wrong crowd, or they've had a father that has not been great and they've emulated that behavior. I know that. I'm not going to pretend like that doesn't exist. But the majority of shitty dudes that are out there with respect to treating women in a way that is, I would consider deeply disrespectful to treat any human being, not just a feminist's perception of what disrespectful is, which is, I mean, their perception of it is, oh, he won't listen to what I'm saying about the gender pay gap, even though I heard it on a website somewhere. Like, because obviously he's like, yeah, that's BS. I know that it is. I've seen the stats. I know how it actually works. And I'm not just going to listen to a Facebook post because Facebook said so. Or like someone with purple and green hair and nose rings and, an obese BMI said so. It's popular to demonize all men as toxic, but if we want real change in society, toxic femininity, quote unquote, must also be part of the discussion. Yes, some men need to change their behavior, but women can also work on bettering themselves. And ultimately, most men aren't dangerous. So incendiary terms like toxic masculinity are just going to make things worse. Sure, within each man is the potential to be toxic, as there is the potential in each woman to be toxic. But equally within each mother is the ability to devour. 100%. 100%. So guys, I'd love to get your thoughts on it. And by the way, shout out to all of you in the chat. I can see you there. Ricardo, Ellie, Eric, Harry, Marie, Douglas, MGTOW Live, Successful Endeavors. I hope you're doing well, man, and recovering well. James, Dragon of Blue Productions says, only the second time I've been able to catch you live, trying to make it more of a habit. Cheers, my dude. I'm sorry I haven't been on more Dragon of Blue, but hopefully I'll make it a bit more possible for you to do so by more frequent posts. Grin Reaper, one of my channel members. Shout out to you. Caucasian MGTOW. Who else have we got in here? BBB, Selden Wright, Ivan, and there are plenty more of you. Now, I did by the way, on a side note, I mentioned, and Chris Daly got his warnings about female nature from his grandma in Jamaica. This is what I'm saying, guys. Grandmas and mothers and sisters and friends need to give their dude friends the inside scoop on what the real deal is, because you're leading them like lambs to the slaughter if they don't have red pill knowledge. That's what I'm saying. And Jamie says the worst influence the young man can be under is his mother. That is 100% correct in the long term. Now, there was a mention here of, because look, there's some stuff going on in Washington right now. It's crazy, man. There's one of the biggest Trump rallies going on down in Washington. And I understand, and the Capitol has been attacked. It's under attack at the moment. Been seeing stuff like that on the news all over the place. And what I saw, actually, one of you in the comments was saying that Antifa were dressing up. Where is it? Stick with me, guys. Where is it? And Bits of Real Panther is working on a video about the University of Victoria content I did a while back. I actually contacted them about their sexist policies. That's cool, man. I like that you did that, and I appreciate that. And, you know, this is, we all got to play a part here. All got to play a part. And Maria again says, Josh Meyer, I've seen girls slam guys' heads against tables in schools, punch, spit on, no consequences from the administration. That's what's going on in schools. And these boys likely are not respected by the girls that are punching and spitting on them, no doubt, because the boys were raised without a masculine figure. But yeah, look, I think I saw something in the, man, where is this? I'm going to see if I can find this. Anti-IF. There we go. Some of the folks that breached the Capitol were Antifa dressed as patriots. Now, it's really interesting because I was listening to a podcast yesterday from Tim Pool talking about this. And Tim Pool was suggesting that maybe some of the patriots could dress up as Antifa and infiltrate Antifa. Clearly, Antifa's gotten wind of that and decided they're going to dress as patriots. So I hope none of that's a result of Tim's stream. I mean, look, Tim had a point. I just maybe don't know that it was helpful to give them ideas a day before one of the biggest rallies in the Capitol. So there's that. But anyway, guys, look, I'm going to leave it at that. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please share this video with people. If you didn't get the notification for this video and you're just seeing it and you are subscribed, please unsubscribe and resubscribe and smash the all bell icon. I've noticed that YouTube have been doing this funny thing where they stop the notifications. I didn't get Young Men's Daily Red Pill. Shout out to Young Men's Daily Red Pill. I didn't get his notifications for almost 2 months. I thought he'd been wiped off the platform. And then I went to look and there was like videos that day, the day before that. And I'm like, what? So then, of course, I subscribed and hit the bell icon. And of course, now I haven't got any just realized I haven't got any more notifications from like a week. So this is just a game of cat and mouse with YouTube, deleting my subscribers, unsubscribing people, and stopping people's notifications. And this is happening with all the channels. It's not just me. So, you know, I need all the help I can get to get more subscribers and share these videos, smash the thumbs up, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff. If you do want to support this channel, you can do so via PayPal or Super Chats when I go live. There's also cryptocurrency, which is going batshit crazy at the moment. It is going bananas. It hit the all-time high. Bitcoin just this morning. It's never been as high as it was this morning. It's crazy. It is crazy. So look, I'm going to leave it at that. I hope you guys have enjoyed this stream. Please share it. Please like. Please comment. Please do all the good stuff that helps to get more reach for channels like this so people can hear articles like this, because this article is the truth. I mean, look, it's open to conjecture and you can debate until the sun's come home with semantics. I had my say on a few little bits that I disagreed with and just tweaked a little because I think that wasn't being presented in the right way. But I think all in all, this article is spot on. And I'd like to get your thoughts. Please keep it respectful in the comments, guys, so we can keep this channel up as long as possible so more men can hear the good word. And I will catch you in the next video. Peace.